Something is being taken from you. Not loudly, not through force, through culture, through media, through a slow, sustained, systematic effort to convince you that the things that make you a man, your drive, your strength, your protectiveness, your ambition, your willingness to lead, are problems to be managed rather than gifts to be deployed. They have a word for it now: toxic. And most men, rather than push back, have accepted it. They have learned to shrink, to soften, to apologize for the instincts that were placed in them for a reason, to perform a version of manhood that was designed by people who are afraid of what a fully formed man can do. The war on masculinity is real. It has been going on for decades, and most men are losing it, not because they were defeated, but because they never realized they were in a fight. This video is about what is actually happening and what a man does about it. Let's be clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not a rant. This is not victim mentality. This is not an excuse for any man to point outward and blame his failures on the culture. A man who uses external forces as a reason not to build is still a man who isn't building. The war on masculinity does not get any man off the hook for his own choices. But the war is real. And understanding it clearly, without either dismissing it or being consumed by it, is the first step to navigating it. Here is what is actually happening. Over the past several decades, the cultural definition of masculinity has been systematically dismantled and replaced. The traditional masculine virtues, strength, stoicism, responsibility, leadership, sacrifice, have been reframed not as strengths, but as pathologies. Boys are being medicated for behavior that is simply the expression of male energy without proper formation. Young men are graduating from educational systems that were not designed for how they think, learn, or process the world. The institutions that once shaped men, the church, the military, the trades, the family, have been weakened or abandoned. And the result is a generation of men who are unformed. Not weak by nature, unformed by neglect. Men who have enormous capacity and no framework for deploying it. Men who were never taught what strength is for, what leadership requires, what it means to protect something beyond yourself. The culture offers them two options: perform the new, softened version of manhood that requires nothing and builds nothing, or retreat into a reactionary, angry version that mistakes aggression for strength. Both are traps. The real answer, the one that requires the most courage and the most formation, is to become the kind of man the culture no longer knows how to produce. Grounded, disciplined, faithful, strong in the way that actually serves people rather than threatens them. That man is not produced by the culture, he is built in spite of it. Strategy 1. Reclaim the definition. The first battle is internal. Before you can push back against a culture that has distorted masculinity, you have to know, clearly and specifically, what masculinity actually is. Not what the culture says it is, not what the internet says it is, what it actually is. Masculinity at its root is ordered strength. It is the capacity to exert force, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, in the service of something beyond yourself. It is the willingness to lead when leadership is needed, to protect when protection is required, to sacrifice comfort for the sake of something that matters more. This is not aggression. it is direction. The difference between masculine strength and masculine toxicity is not the strength itself. It is whether that strength is ordered toward the good of others or turned inward in selfishness and domination. A man who uses his strength to protect his family is expressing masculinity at its best. A man who uses his strength to control, harm, or diminish, that is not the fullness of masculinity. That is its corruption. Reclaim the definition. Know what you are. Know what strength is for. Because a man who cannot define what he is cannot defend what he is being asked to surrender. Strategy 2. Refuse both traps. The culture has set 2 traps for men, and most men fall into one or the other without realizing either is a trap. Trap 1. The soft man. The man who has accepted the cultural narrative so completely that he has hollowed himself out. He has mistaken passivity for humility, emotional expression for emotional health, and the absence of masculine instincts for virtue. He is not dangerous, but he is also not useful. He cannot lead. He cannot protect. He cannot build. He is a pleasant presence who leaves the world exactly as he found it. Trap 2. The reactive man. The man who is so enraged by the attack on masculinity that his entire identity has become the reaction. He is angry, aggressive, performatively hard. He has mistaken volume for strength, defiance for courage, and hostility for conviction. He has not built anything. He is too busy fighting to build. Both traps produce men who are controlled by the culture, one by surrendering to it, one by being defined entirely in opposition to it. The man who escapes both traps is the man who is so clearly grounded in who he is that the culture's approval or disapproval of him is simply irrelevant. He does not need validation, and he does not need an enemy. He has a mission. He has a standard. He has a life he is building. That man is not produced by reacting to the culture. He is produced by ignoring it and building anyway. Strategy 3. Form yourself deliberately. If the institutions that once formed men have weakened, and they have, then formation becomes the man's personal responsibility. You cannot wait for the culture to produce the kind of man you want to be. It won't. You have to build that man yourself, deliberately, from the raw material you have been given. This means seeking out the formation the culture is no longer providing. Reading the men who built things worth building: Marcus Aurelius, Chesterton, Aquinas, Churchill, the Desert Fathers. Surrounding yourself with men who are further along the road, who carry themselves with the kind of gravity you want to develop, who will tell you the truth about where you are falling short. It means building your body, not for vanity, but because a man who cannot govern his physical self cannot govern anything else. It means building financial discipline, not for wealth's sake, but because a man who cannot manage money cannot build freedom. It means building a prayer life, not as performance, but as the foundation that keeps everything else ordered. The world is not going to form you into the man you were made to be. That job belongs to you, and the men who take it seriously, who pursue formation with the same intensity they would bring to any mission that mattered. Those men become something the culture cannot manufacture and cannot diminish. Strategy 4. Be the countersign. This is the level that changes everything. The Catholic Church has always understood that the men who change culture are not the men who fight it loudest. They are the men who live differently, so visibly, so completely, so joyfully, that the contrast itself becomes a witness. The saints did not win the Roman Empire by defeating it in argument. They won it by living in a way the empire could not explain and could not ignore. Men and women who faced death with peace. Communities that loved each other across every social boundary. A way of life so full and so true that it drew people toward it simply by existing. That is the call for a man of faith in this cultural moment. You are not called to win a culture war on Twitter. You are called to be a countersign, a man whose life is so clearly ordered, so obviously purposeful, so grounded in something the culture has abandoned, that men around you are drawn toward what you carry without being able to fully explain why. Be the husband who stays, the father who shows up, the man who keeps his word, governs himself, leads with strength, and serves with love. The man who prays without apology and builds without permission. St. John Paul II called this the new evangelization, not a new message, but the old message lived with new fire. You are part of that, not by fighting the culture, but by being what the culture has forgotten how to produce. Be the countersign. That is how the war is won.